At 93, Barbara Eden just proved why Hollywood can't stop talking about her. The I Dream of Jeannie Starr's wild confessions are finally coming out. Tom Jones's shocking advance while they were both married, JFK's secret phone number, and the scandalous belly button controversy that nearly got her fired. But that's not even the juiciest part. Wait until you hear what really happened with Larry Hagman on set and why she kept quiet about it for 50 years. Barbara Eden was born Barbara Jean Moorhead on August 23, 1931 in Tucson, Arizona. It was the middle of the Great Depression, a time when families across the country were struggling to get by. Her parents, Alice and Hubert Moorhead, did their best to make a life for themselves, but money was tight, and the future was uncertain. Despite the hardships, there was something special about Barbara's family history. She was a descendant of Benjamin Franklin, a connection to one of America's most influential figures. When Barbara was 3, her parents divorced. Her mother took her to San Francisco, hoping for a fresh start. The city became their new home, but life was far from easy. Alice eventually remarried, becoming the wife of Harrison Connor Huffman, a telephone lineman. Barbara now had a half-sister, and their family did what they could to get by. Money was always a concern, but Alice found ways to keep their spirits high. She sang to her daughters, filling their home with music. Those moments became a source of comfort and inspiration for Barbara. Growing up in San Francisco shaped her in ways she didn't yet realize. She lived in the Parkside neighborhood, a close-knit community with deep roots. Her family had been in the city for generations, with ancestors who had arrived on covered wagons and clipper ships. But history didn't pay the bills, and Barbara learned early on that she had to work for what she wanted. As a teenager, she started using her talent to help her family. She sang in church choirs, and soon she was performing with local bands. She wasn't just doing it for fun. Singing brought in money, something her family needed. She performed in nightclubs, earning $10 a night. It was a big deal at the time, and it gave her something even more valuable: experience. She worked with bands led by Howard Fredericks and Freddie Martin. Learning how to command a stage, performing in front of live audiences made her more confident. Every night, she got better, and every performance pushed her closer to something bigger. Music was her first love, but she started to see a future in acting. At 16, she made a bold move and joined Actors Equity. It was a sign that she was serious about performing. She trained at the Elizabeth Holloway School of Theater and also studied singing at the San Francisco Conservatory of Music. In 1949, she graduated from Abraham Lincoln High School. She spent the next year at City College of San Francisco, studying theater and preparing for the next step in her career. Then came something unexpected. In 1951, she entered a beauty pageant under the name Barbara Huffman. She won the title of Miss San Francisco, and suddenly she was in the spotlight. She competed in the Miss California pageant as well. She didn't win, but it didn't matter. The experience gave her confidence. She had already been performing for years, but now she was getting noticed. Barbara Eden's journey into television started with small but important steps. In 1955, she appeared on The Johnny Carson Show. This was her first big opportunity, a chance to perform on a national stage. At the time, television was still new, but landing a spot on a variety show meant exposure to millions. Eden wasn't just there to sing, she also showed off her acting skills, which caught the attention of producers. They saw something in her, an energy that made people want to watch. Not long after, she appeared on I Love Lucy. This was more than just another acting job. Lucille Ball was one of the biggest stars in television. Working alongside her was an experience that any young actress would have dreamed of. Ball had perfect comedic timing, and she controlled every part of her show. Sharing the screen with her gave Eden a chance to learn from the best. Even though the role was small, it helped Eden get noticed in the industry. Her career didn't happen by accident. Eden's mother saw her potential early on. She told her that singing alone wasn't enough. Emotion was missing from her performances, and acting could help her fix that. Taking this advice seriously, Eden enrolled at the Elizabeth Holloway School of Theater. Training gave her the confidence and skills to take on more complex roles. She started landing guest appearances on popular shows. She played different characters in Highway Patrol, Private Secretary, The Millionaire, and Perry Mason. None of these were starring roles, but each one added to her experience. Every new set brought challenges. Every director had a different style. Each time she stepped in front of a camera, she learned something new. Then came the breakthrough. In 1957, she was cast in How to Marry a Millionaire. This was a television adaptation of the 1953 film that had starred Marilyn Monroe, Betty Grable, and Lauren Bacall. The show followed 3 young women living in New York City, all hoping to marry wealthy men. It was a light-hearted comedy, and Eden was one of the leads. This was her first time as a series regular. The show ran for 2 seasons. It was a fast-paced production, and working on a sitcom required sharp comedic timing. Eden had to learn how to react quickly, deliver punchlines, and make her character feel real. Keeping up with weekly scripts was challenging, but she adapted fast. Even though the series only lasted 52 episodes, it gave her something valuable: experience as a leading lady. By 1960, she was ready for something bigger. Her first major film role came in Flaming Star, a Western drama starring Elvis Presley. Unlike most of his previous movies, this was a serious story. Presley played a man caught between two worlds, his Kiowa heritage and his white family. Eden played Rosalind Pierce, a woman caught up in the conflict. This wasn't a lighthearted romance, it was a film with real emotion, and her performance showed that she could handle dramatic roles. Flaming Star reached number 12 at the box office and received strong reviews. Presley himself was praised for his acting, proving he was more than just a singer. The following year, Eden took on Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, a science fiction adventure directed by Irwin Allen. This time, she played Lieutenant Kathy Connors. The movie was about a submarine crew facing a global catastrophe, mixing action with futuristic storytelling. Science fiction was gaining popularity, and this film became one of the biggest in the genre. For Eden, it was a chance to prove she could handle different kinds of roles. She had gone from comedy to drama to action, showing she wasn't limited to just one style. Even with these successes, breaking into Hollywood wasn't easy. The industry was crowded with young actresses trying to make it big. Every audition meant competing with dozens of others. Rejection was part of the process, and Eden had to work harder to stand out. Barbara Eden's life changed forever in 1965 when she became Jeannie in I Dream of Jeannie. The show was a fantasy sitcom created by Sidney Sheldon, and it ran for 5 seasons from September 18, 1965 to May 26, 1970. This one role made Eden a television star. She played a 2,000-year-old Jeannie who was playful, mischievous, and deeply devoted to her master, astronaut Tony Nelson. But Eden brought more to the character than just magic tricks and charm. She made Jeannie funny, clever, and full of personality. At first, the show was meant to have a serious tone, but that quickly changed when Eden was cast. She had a natural comedic timing that gave the show its lighthearted feel. The chemistry between her and Larry Hagman, who played Tony Nelson, became the heart of the series. Tony was logical and disciplined. Jeannie was impulsive and full of energy. Their constant push and pull made every episode entertaining. The story began when Tony's space mission went off course. He crash-landed on a deserted island and found an old bottle buried in the sand. When he opened it, smoke poured out, and suddenly a beautiful woman appeared. She introduced herself as Jeannie and declared Tony her master. He didn't believe what he was seeing, but before he knew it, she had used her powers to get them off the island and back to his home in Cocoa Beach, Florida. From that moment on, his quiet life was over. Jeannie wanted to help Tony, but her magic usually caused more trouble than good. Whether she was trying to impress his boss or make Tony's life easier, things always spiraled out of control. To make matters worse, Tony had to keep her a secret from his friends and coworkers. His best friend, Roger Healy, played by Bill Daly, eventually found out and loved every second of it. But Dr. Bellows, a NASA psychiatrist, was always suspicious. Every time something strange happened, he was convinced Tony was hiding something. When I Dream of Jeannie ended in 1970, Eden's connection to the character didn't fade. The show remained popular in reruns, and new generations fell in love with Jeannie's adventures. Eden reprised the role in reunion specials, and even decades later, she was still recognized for it. Meanwhile, Larry Hagman was a brilliant actor, but his behavior on the set of I Dream of Jeannie was anything but ordinary. His mood could shift without warning, and his outbursts often left people around him in shock. When he didn't like a script, he wouldn't just complain, he took things to another level. More than once, he urinated on the scripts or even on parts of the set. This wasn't a random tantrum. It became something the cast and crew had to deal with regularly. His unpredictable nature wasn't just about bad temper. It was fueled by addiction. In the early seasons of I Dream of Jeannie, Hagman used amphetamines and nicotine, thinking they would help him stay energized and manage his weight. He didn't realize how addictive they were. Over time, they took a serious toll on his behavior. He eventually quit, but the damage had already been done. The stories about his wild antics only grew. One day, he showed up on set in a gorilla suit for no reason at all. Another time, a group of nuns visited the studio and walked right into one of his worst moments. He was shouting, cursing, and swinging an axe around, completely unaware of their presence. The network eventually stepped in. NBC suggested he see a therapist, hoping it would help, but instead of calming him down, the therapist told him to experiment with LSD and marijuana. That advice only made things worse. Barbara Eden, his co-star, saw everything firsthand. She never denied how difficult he could be, but she also recognized something important. His wild energy somehow worked for the show. It created tension between their characters that made I Dream of Jeannie even more entertaining. Their chemistry kept audiences hooked, even if things behind the scenes were chaotic. Hagman's personal struggles caught up with him in later years. His drinking problem led to serious health issues, forcing him to get a liver transplant in the mid-1990s. Despite his struggles, he continued acting until his death in 2012 at the age of 81. Barbara Eden had her own unforgettable moments in Hollywood. In 1969, she appeared as a guest on This Is Tom Jones, a popular variety show. During the taping, Tom Jones made an unexpected move on her. They were both married, but that didn't seem to matter to him. Eden later recalled how she politely reminded him that she was married. Jones just smiled and said, "So what? So am I." That wasn't the only time a famous man took an interest in her. In 1957, she met John F. Kennedy at an airport. He handed her a note with his phone number, a quiet but obvious invitation. She never called him, but the story became one of many fascinating moments in her career. Through it all, Eden remained professional. Hollywood could be overwhelming, but she never let it change who she was. She worked on The Carol Burnett Show and The Sonny and Cher Show. She starred in theater productions of The Sound of Music and Gentlemen Prefer Blondes. She even released an album in 1967 called Miss Barbara Eden. Her career lasted for decades because she focused on her work instead of the distractions around her. But nothing in her career caused a bigger media frenzy than the so-called belly button controversy. It started with a simple observation. A journalist pointed out that Eden's belly button was never visible on I Dream of Jeannie. That one comment exploded into a ridiculous debate. Rumors spread that NBC had strict rules about it. Some claimed the network forced her to wear a flesh-colored plug to hide it. Eden always denied this. She explained that her costume naturally covered her navel and that the story had been blown out of proportion. At the height of the frenzy, comedian George Schlatter, the creator of Laugh-In, joked about revealing Eden's belly button on his show. NBC shut down the idea immediately, which only made people more obsessed with the topic. Some even tried to justify the decision by saying that Jeannie, being a magical genie, wouldn't have a belly button in the first place. The reality was much simpler. The costume designers made a choice, and the media turned it into a scandal. After I Dream of Jeannie, Barbara Eden didn't disappear from the spotlight. She kept finding new ways to entertain audiences, proving she was more than just the famous genie. One of her biggest roles after the show was Harper Valley PTA, a film that turned into a TV series. The story came from a hit country song about a widowed mother, Stella Johnson, who challenges the hypocritical people in her small town. The movie did well, so in 1981, NBC decided to turn it into a series. Eden played Stella once again, this time leading a show that mixed comedy with social commentary. At first, the series focused on Stella taking on the local PTA. She exposed the double standards of the town's so-called respectable citizens, always managing to stay one step ahead of them. But as the show went on, the focus shifted to her personal life. She raised her daughter Dee while dealing with her eccentric uncle, Winslow Homer Smith. The town was filled with quirky characters, including the snobbish Riley family, who constantly clashed with Stella. Eden made Stella smart, bold, and funny. She showed a different side of herself, moving away from the magical world of Jeannie and proving she could lead a comedy with a more down-to-earth role. Harper Valley PTA ran for 2 seasons. It didn't last as long as some hoped, but it left an impression. The show later aired in syndication, giving it a second life. In 2000, TV Land brought it back again, introducing a younger audience to Eden's work outside of Jeannie. It was proof that she had the kind of talent that didn't fade with time. Eden's career wasn't limited to television. She also made a name for herself on stage. In 1965, she starred in a national tour of The Sound of Music, playing Maria. This surprised some fans who didn't realize she could sing, but she proved she had the voice and energy for a big musical. Years later, she took on a completely different kind of play, Love Letters. This production told the story of a man and woman who exchanged letters for almost 50 years. The entire play was performed with the actors reading their letters out loud, creating an intimate and emotional experience. One of the biggest highlights of Love Letters was that Eden performed it with Larry Hagman, her I Dream of Jeannie co-star. Seeing them together again brought back memories for longtime fans. Their chemistry hadn't faded, and the story of love, loss, and missed chances became even more powerful with them in the roles. Unlike Jeannie, this play was serious and emotional. Eden showed she could move audiences in a completely different way, proving she was more than just a comedic actress. Even as television changed, Eden remained a familiar face. In the final season of Dallas, she appeared in 5 episodes, once again sharing the screen with Larry Hagman. This time, though, their dynamic was different. Dallas was a high-stakes drama, a world away from the playful charm of I Dream of Jeannie. Eden's character brought a new twist to the show's final stretch, and her scenes with Hagman carried extra weight for fans who had loved their work together years earlier. She didn't leave comedy behind, though. In 2002, she appeared on Sabrina the Teenage Witch, playing Sabrina's great aunt Irma. This role was a fun throwback to her days as Jeannie, letting her step back into a magical world, but with a new spin. It was a light-hearted performance that reminded audiences why she had been such a beloved star for so many years. Barbara Eden's life was filled with success, love, and heartbreak. She became a television icon. But behind the scenes, she faced struggles that shaped her into the strong woman she is today. Her greatest joys came from love and family, but so did her deepest pain. In 1958, she married actor Michael Ansara. They wanted a child for years, but struggled to conceive. When their son Matthew was born in 1965, it felt like a miracle. She called him their lucky charm baby because they had waited so long for him. For a while, life was perfect. But things changed as Matthew grew older. He was introduced to marijuana when he was just 10. A neighbor in the San Fernando Valley shared it with him and other kids. What started as a small experiment turned into a battle with addiction. Over the years, he tried to get clean. Rehab, therapy, and support from his parents helped at times, but the struggle never really ended. In 2001, Matthew lost his battle. He died from a heroin overdose at the age of 35. The news shattered Barbara. She blamed herself. She felt helpless. She kept wondering if there was something she could have done to save him. But instead of letting grief destroy her, she decided to speak out. She shared her story to help other families facing addiction. She wanted to turn her pain into something meaningful. Decades before losing Matthew, she had already faced another devastating loss. In 1971, she was pregnant again. Nearly 8 months along, she was ready to welcome another baby. Then she got the news. The baby had died in the womb. The shock and sadness overwhelmed her. At that time, people rarely talked about depression. She felt alone. She tried to move forward, but the weight of that loss stayed with her. Her marriage to Michael Ansara had already been struggling. Barbara's career was thriving, while his was slowing down. Financial stress and emotional distance made things worse. After 15 years together, they divorced in 1974. Losing her child had pushed her deeper into depression. It had also pushed them further apart. After the divorce, Matthew spent more time with his father. Barbara worried about him, but distance made it harder to be involved. His addiction started around this time. Looking back, she felt like she had lost control. She wanted to be there for him, but life had pulled them in different directions. In 1977, she married Charles Fegert, an executive at the Chicago Sun-Times. For a while, things seemed good, but this marriage was different. It didn't last. In 1983, they divorced. During this time, her focus was not just on her career, but on Matthew's worsening addiction. The weight of it all became unbearable. Then something unexpected happened. In 1991, she met John Eichholz, a real estate developer. He was kind. He was patient. Most importantly, he brought her a sense of peace she had never felt before. They married, and for the first time in a long time, she felt truly stable. Through everything, Barbara Eden never lost hope. She turned her pain into purpose. She spoke about addiction to help others. She found happiness again with John. She learned that life never goes the way you expect, but you keep going. You hold on to the love you have, and you remember the ones you lost. Her journey was filled with heartbreak, but it was also a story of strength. Barbara Eden is known for bringing magic to television, but her impact goes far beyond the screen. She has spent years helping others, using her fame to support causes close to her heart. Organizations like Save the Children, the American Cancer Society, and the Make-A-Wish Foundation have all benefited from her dedication. These groups focus on helping children, funding cancer research, and granting wishes for those facing life-threatening illnesses. For Eden, this work is not about publicity. It is about making a real difference. Her involvement goes beyond donations. She has actively participated in fundraising events, awareness campaigns, and charity programs. One of her most meaningful contributions is her work with the Trail of Painted Ponies Breast Cancer Research Initiative. This organization combines art with philanthropy, auctioning hand-painted horse figurines to raise money for breast cancer research. Eden believes creativity can bring people together, and she has used her influence to bring attention to this cause. She has also supported the Wellness Community, a group that provides emotional and psychological support to people battling cancer. Another important cause for her is Child Help USA, an organization focused on preventing child abuse and helping victims heal. Eden's commitment to these causes comes from a deeply personal place. She has spoken about how her own struggles have made her more empathetic to the pain of others. She believes giving back is a responsibility, and her dedication has inspired many fans to get involved as well. In 2011, she shared her life story in Genie Out of the Bottle, a memoir that gives a rare look at the woman behind the iconic role. It covers her journey from a young, struggling actress to a household name, but fame is only part of her story. The book reveals her personal challenges, including heartbreak, loss, and resilience. One of the most painful chapters of her life was losing her son, Matthew Ansara, to a heroin overdose in 2001. The tragedy was devastating, but instead of letting grief consume her, she chose to raise awareness about drug addiction. She has spoken openly about the dangers of substance abuse, hoping her story can help others. Her personal life has seen other hardships as well. She endured the stillbirth of a child during her first marriage and later faced difficulties with her second husband, Charles Fagur, who struggled with addiction. Despite these painful moments, she never lost her strength. Her memoir also takes readers behind the scenes of I Dream of Jeannie. She shares memories of working with Larry Hagman and the challenges of playing multiple versions of Jeannie. She also talks about life in Hollywood, the friendships she built, and the lessons she learned along the way. She writes with honesty, humor, and warmth, making the book feel like a conversation with an old friend. Along with her words, the book includes 16 pages of photographs, giving fans a visual journey through her life and career. Barbara Eden has been in the spotlight for decades, and even at 93, she shows no signs of slowing down. On November 17, 1988, she received a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. 2 years later, the University of West Los Angeles Law School awarded her an honorary Doctor of Laws degree. These honors recognized her incredible impact, but what truly sets her apart is her dedication to her craft and her fans. Unlike many stars from her era, Eden still makes public appearances and stays engaged with the entertainment world. She attends conventions, gives interviews, and supports charity events. Her energy and enthusiasm haven't faded. Fans who meet her today say she is just as charming and full of life as she was in her I Dream of Jeannie days. In October 2023, she attended the Hazard Fest Autograph Convention show. A month later, she appeared at the Rhode Island Comic Con. These events aren't just about signing autographs. For Eden, they are a way to connect with people who have followed her career for years. She shares stories, answers questions, and reminds everyone why she became such a beloved star in the first place.